Hi, I'm Richard Bosselman, motoringnz.com, and we're at the Southern Hemisphere Proving Ground for Audi Ice Days. Okay, now this place is really busy at this time of the year. A whole lot of prototype cars running around here and places that we're not allowed to go to. You're hearing about Lucid's been up here at the moment, strange American postal vans, all sorts of stuff. At the same time, a lot of distributors in New Zealand start bringing their customers up here for these ice driving experiences. None have been here for longer than Audi. They started the whole genre. This is their 15th year. What you haven't seen is how it all comes together, and that's what this video is about today. We're talking to Greg Leet, the General Manager of Audi New Zealand, about what it takes to fund this thing. It's a massive exercise. Also, we're talking to the guys at Downforce, to Richard Moore, who's the Chief Driving Instructor, about what goes on for his team. These guys are working 12 to 14-hour days. So, we'll get on with the show. I'll move on, get into a car, start driving as soon as I can unstick my feet from the ice.
This environment is absolutely made to demonstrate the performance of Audi, and coupled with Quattro, it's made for these conditions. And it's often when the cars are driven in these conditions that people understand what's capable on the road, because it's not often experienced on the road. The other thing is that it has been an enduring event for us, and we have so many repeat customers that they enjoy it so much. You know, it's really a highlight of people's year. So, you know, we make a great investment to ensure our customers get to experience our brand, as we like to be seen and show up and really deliver thrilling experiences. But, you know, we do bring, I think, a Kiwi flair to the ice drive experience. You know, so the food that we serve, the more, a little bit sort of laid-back nature, I think is really evident in what we experience here.
It's rumoured a single day on the ice to your scale could probably pay for a brand new small budget car, and you're here for weeks. I mean, how does all that work? Keep you awake at night, budgeting for this?
We budget well in advance, for this. You're right, it isn't a cheap experience, but what price do you put on those experiences sometimes for customers? It's one thing to look at a balance sheet, but it's another thing to look at the smiles of our customers every time that they turn up at events like this. And, we do ensure that every dollar that we do spend is spent in the best way, so it goes to the right areas. When we do apply levels of innovation every year, tweak a little bit of this and tweak a little bit of that, and I still think, that we deliver an absolutely world-class event here that customers just absolutely love and continue to come back to and tell their friends about.
Is it left just to Audi New Zealand to fund it, or do you get assistance from the parent brand in Germany?
I'd love to say we get assistance, but no, we don't. But we do in regards for them promoting it as well. We do get a lot of global interest in this event that we're starting to ramp up. Australia were with us last year, and they discovered that it was such an amazing event. This year they're bringing their own customers to it as well, so that's really good to see.
And that's a real breakthrough, isn't it?
Yeah.
How many customers are coming from Australia this year?
From Australia is 25.
Wow, that's great. And that's out of 150 all in all for this year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a boom market. There's not too much snow in Australia.
Yeah. Look, and there are plenty of other countries as well looking to come. So yeah, we do definitely see an opportunity to promote this more on a global stage.
Sure. e-tron RSGT is very much front and central at this event.
Yep.
Next year, over the next 2 years, you're introducing 15 new cars, most of which will be electric or electrified. In fact, all of them will be electric or electrified.
Some form or another.
Yeah. How long before this becomes an electric car only event?
Yeah. Depends how far forward we look. But yeah, it'll still be a mix of both for a while. Yeah.
So it would be an absolute oversimplification to describe you as driving instructors or event coordinators, or how do you define, if you have to tell people in a single sentence what downforce is?
It's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
People say it all the time, when you're talking to somebody that has no idea what we do, they say, explain to me what your job is. It's quite a tricky one to do. But essentially we started off as a company that delivered racetrack driving for people who were track enthusiasts, let's say, driving sports cars on racetracks. All of our staff were active racing car drivers. They pretty much still are, to be totally honest.
Yep.
And that's progressed over the years into what I call the 4 pillars of downforce. So started off with racetracks, driving sports cars, road cars, and that sort of thing. Then into public road tours and driver training, as well as what we're doing today, snow and ice driving, and off-road, which is kind of sums up the 4 branches of our operation.
Absolutely.
But in addition, I guess what you're saying as well is we offer a full turnkey package, but we can give or we can offer a single instructor to do one-on-one training for somebody, up to the level of a day like today where we have a lot of assistance from the Audi team, but we're effectively managing everything that happens whilst they're up the mountain.
Where does ice driving fit in as an exercise for your operation? Is it one of the biggest?
It depends on the year. This year the level's been slightly lower. Last year we had our biggest year ever. We did 35 event days, and really excited that we actually completed all 35. We had no weather affected days, but as a whole, as a business, it's probably around a quarter. The team at the Southern Hemisphere Proving Ground do an incredible job of making the snow flats very resilient, and we're looking around the car at the moment and you can see a lot of white, a lot of snow on the ridges and things, but when we were here there was none of that, but all the snow flats were still in very good condition.
Yes.
And because it's low temperature, we can still go ahead. That's probably the most important thing. We don't necessarily need snow. From where we're sitting, I think I can see about 6 snow blowers around us. So as long as the temperatures are cold enough, then we can still continue. It's more when the temperature gets warmer, or if we get rain, that's snow's worst nightmare.
And let's unwrap this day for you. I mean, for a guest, it's pretty simple. You rock up at a pretty comfortable time, 7:30 in the morning. You're gone by mid-afternoon. But that's half your day. You guys are here 12, 14 hours a day, really, aren't you?
Yeah, we have a slightly earlier wake-up call, so most of the team get up around 4 o'clock. We're driving up the mountain by 5 a.m. which gets us here around 6. And because all the snow flats get cleared every night, and the Proving Grounds team are preparing them, they're grading the flats, they're watering them if they need to or if they can, and then they'll do a final groom in the morning before we arrive, a heavy roll or a whole lot of other things to make sure it's as good as possible for us. Sometimes they're still working when we arrive at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then we get all the cones set up, get the cars set up.
I don't think people quite understand either, Richard, that to create what you have on a daily basis, you actually have to take everything apart at the end of the day. There's nothing left here at all. So
completely
the Southern Hemisphere people can come in and groom all the slopes.
Yep.
And then you have to put it all back together again, exactly where it was.
Hopefully exactly where it was.
Well,
the
you've
day
got a
before.
feel for it. I mean,
and to add to that, the team is doing all of this in the pitch black because it's a long way before the sun comes up when we're setting up the flats, and the teams are running around trying to get everything as perfect as possible, get the cars all lined up. Just the scale of the number of vehicles here, we've got I think 18 cars including our support fleet, and like you say, it is a big operation, and it all comes together in quite a short space of time for the customer. We have an amazing team that we work with, and the guys and girls that work for Downforce and also for the suppliers that we have are fantastic. They've spent a lot of time up here. Nothing's ever a problem. We work big hours, which is fine, and every instructor wants to do ice driving. That is the pinnacle of what we do. The days are long, the weather's hard. We're standing outside when you guys are inside enjoying the heated steering wheels and heated seats. The team are out in the cold and the wind, but with that comes the positives of being in such an incredible place. We try to take the team over, at least the core group of the team, over to either Sweden or Finland to work with the Audi AG team once every 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
Gives them an enormous amount of experience in quite a different environment, because they're working on a frozen lake. Their track that we drive around, it's like a racetrack, is over 10 kilometres long.
Wow.
It's incredible. And I remember the first time going over there, and me and another instructor kind of got let loose at the end of the day, and we literally drove until the cars ran out of petrol, and they had to bring some jerry cans out to fill the cars up so we could get them back. So that was, for me, the best day of my life at the time.
So there are all sorts of considerations that must go on for your day when you're preparing cars. Like if this was a race circuit activity, you'd imagine the big end of day thing beyond cleaning the car would be changing tyres and checking brake pads, blah blah blah, and discs. Are they considerations for ice driving, or are there a whole different set of rules that apply there?
It is very different. It's similar in the fact that there's a lot of things we need to check. We have a full-time technician up here from Giltrap Audi on loan to us, and he, to be honest, is here as more of an insurance policy if something was to go wrong. Most of the time he's just doing little checks to make sure the cars are all running fine, the tyres are all good. When you talk about tyres and brakes, the ice driving is, in terms of the load on the car, very, very light, because there's no resistance. So they're driving around and you might be able to hear the cars in the background revving and getting some high RPM, but there's no loading through the transmission, there's no loading through the drive line, which means it's actually really easy on the car.
Yes.
The damage comes, unfortunately, you may or may not have seen up at Mini Finland, where cars can end up in the snowbank and just
which
little,
are like concrete.
Yeah,
they look like pillow putts, but they're like concrete. They're really hard. Yes, I've experienced those in the last years. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, so we run on part of the fleet a underbody protection as just effectively stopping anything from coming up into the radiators, intercoolers, that sort of thing. There's also a bar behind the bumper that it's not going to stop the bumper getting damaged, but it'll stop it from caving in and damaging other parts of the car that are quite important to keep the cars rolling throughout the whole event. As a whole, we have very low levels of damage.
How different is it to prepare an electric car for ice driving than it would be, say, a petrol car?
I'll call it a tank of fuel and a tank of battery.
Yeah.
internal combustion engine car will use more of its percentage of fuel in a day than an electric car will use a percentage of its battery, which I found quite amazing. And we just plug them into it's a 3-phase charging port, and it charges them overnight very easily. They use about 2/3 of a tank of battery.
Yeah. So it's well known, of course, with electric cars and some batteries, and it has been for some brands in particular, extreme cold, they
Yes.
don't like it, and extreme heat, they don't like it, and they love that midpoint. But what do you find with the e-trons in extreme cold?
I'll be totally honest, the extreme cold here is nowhere near what we experienced. Like when we were in Finland last, I think we got close to -40.
Right. Where do you get? What's the lowest it's ever got here when you've been training? -9, -10.
You get -10
Yeah.
once, twice a season. You probably get -10, not very often, and
Yeah.
they're usually bad weather days, which is not ideal. But even at -10, it doesn't seem to affect the battery life particularly much. But for me, driving electric on the snow, the one thing, or the biggest benefit, is the instant torque. So you have 100% torque from any speed, any time. You put your foot to the floor, you get all, for the RS e-tron GT, 830 Newton meters of torque,
Yeah,
which
it's a lot.
when you get yourself into some situations where you need the power quickly, it can help you get out. And I do tend to get myself into situations where I need,
We'll get to
need
that in a minute
saving.
too. We're going to be talking about that. One thing I do understand that maybe a drawback of so much torque so instantaneously is that it puts a lot on the tyre, and they are studded tyres. But have you found that they'll throw a stud or anything like that?
I'm not going to get into too many secrets about the tyres that we use, but we have moved to a different style of tyre now, and we don't lose studs anymore.
You're using European ice tyres, aren't you?
Yes, we are, yeah. So tyres we get are purpose-built for what we're doing. They're not a tyre that has a stud drilled into it.
Right.
We used to hand stud every tyre.
Oh my God.
A big tyre, like a rare tyre of an RS e-tron GT, might have somewhere around 200 to 300 studs. And my wrists can tell you that in putting those in with a little hand drill, it is not very pleasant. And we'd lose probably 10% a day.
Yeah.
So you'd be doing 30 per tyre per day over 10 cars, 4 tyres. I can't do the maths on that, but it's a lot of studs per day.
A highlight of the ice driving day is the hot lap at the end.
For me too.
Yeah, and you do this. I mean, this is your thing. This is, I mean, you've had a massive experience in motorsport, V8 Super Tourers, all sorts. So, but still, you know, how challenging is that for a driver? Is it the same kind of thrill, and is this high risk to you as a, say, a race lap? And I mean, you must stay awake hoping you're not going to crash a car. How close have you got to?
I've gone beyond the limit of physics, as I say in my intro at the start of the day. You need to stay within the limits of physics. I have gone beyond that, and like anything, I remember when I was a kid, used to look up to Ashley Sitchery. He always said, you have to exceed the limits to know where the limit is, and I've certainly done that.
What if there's one single thing you need to do? What is the key? Is it smoothness? Is it patience?
The key, I think, for someone like me or someone like yourself with a lot of driving experience, take everything that you know, put it in a box, and then throw the box away.
Yeah.
Because you've got to rethink how you approach the way that the car works, and you have to think ahead of where you are. Set the car up in a way that's going to help you get around a corner. If you straighten the car up and you start building speed, you're going to be in the snowbank very, very quickly. So it's about relearning, and probably the hardest thing is when you think you're going to spin with Quattro, turn the front wheels where you want the car to go and give it some throttle, because if you don't, you will spin and you'll end up going the way you don't. But the technology in Quattro, and something that really impresses me with the electric variants with RS e-tron GT, is it still has the Quattro feel. I know it's not a Quattro gearbox, and Audi will probably shoot me for saying that, but it is exactly the same feeling of how it delivers the power from the front to the rear as a conventional Quattro that we all love, and that we enjoy driving so much on the snow.
Okay, well that's our wrap up for our day on the ice with Audi Ice Experience with Downforce at the Southern Hemisphere Proving Ground. Hope you found it informative. Sun's still shining and we've got a few more minutes here, so I'm off to do some more skids.